is the North American service broadcasting on 17.70, 15.42, 12.05.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
What have you done to its eyes?
The next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
They are not what they claim to be.
You're listening to Radio.
Hello.
Whoa, hi.
Hi.
Oh my god. You seem jazzed.
My god. We're back. This is
You seem unjazzed now.
I guess we're back today.
Welcome back.
This week. Welcome back to Radio Grave.
You're in our grave, you're in our crypt.
That's our theme song. I'm here with Dom.
I'm here with Amber.
And today we're here to talk about Gary Sudbrink.
Who is Gary Sudbrink?
I don't expect you to know who Gary Sudbrink is at all.
I expect people to... No, I guess I don't.
So that's okay. Gary Sudbrink would be the victim of a strange rash of cryptic phone calls from an unidentified voice while visiting his family in Long Island in February of 1993.
Good year.
Yeah, right? So that may not sound that weird. This shit pops the fuck off.
Pop it off, beach.
And is so scary.
Pop that Gary Sud bussy.
Oh, for real, Sud bussy. So let's just get straight into it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I love this one.
I'm obsessed with this case. I'm here for it. This is probably one of the my favorite ones that I wrote. I know I keep saying that. I've said that a million times. I just love this subject more than anything else in the world.
I also love that I'm all jazzed and I'm like, I love this one. And then I know in an hour I'm going to be like, yeah, it's just fake. It's nothing.
Literally.
That's nothing. Don't worry.
Nothing happened. That's
Either that
so
or I'll
you.
be like, it was demons and the Illuminati and JFK.
Well, we'll get into that because maybe. So beforehand, I just want to say just a disclaimer that throughout this story, you will really get to understand what kind of person Gary Sudbrink is. And it's fair to assume that Gary was at this time in his life a really friendly person, but he was private and respectful. He was of sound mind and was obviously well respected in the Air Force.
Yeah, he was a U.S. Air Force captain?
Yes,
right?
He was a U.S. Air Force captain. And Gary at no time seems like he is a jokester or even remotely humored by pranks. And his family members present this way as well. So keep this in mind as we move forward with Gary's story. He is not a person who is out here sensationalizing this. He is not interested in that sort of attention. His family is not like that, and he's not like that.
Yeah, they're not jokesters. They're not silly.
No.
They're just very straightforward, normal.
As normal as these people can be.
Right.
You'll kind of get a better idea. So let's just get straight into it. So Gary Sudbrink was stationed in San Antonio, Texas, and was working in a military medical pharmacy. Gary was originally from Long Island, New York, and his parents, brothers, and a few of his friends were back in Long Island, and he did try to visit them as often as he could. So in February of that same year, Gary decided to fly home for an impromptu visit to see his parents since he had been given some time off. The only issue was that there was one stipulation. Long distance visits were prohibited unless the trip was paid out with stipend vacation time. He already had the time off, and not wanting to waste his precious vacation time on the Long Island visit, Gary decided to embark on this trip secretly. He purchased his tickets to return home without the knowledge of his family, military peers, or superiors. Oftentimes reports are vague about why he didn't tell anyone about the trip, sometimes saying it was supposed to be a spontaneous surprise visit, but this is inaccurate. And he has said this in interviews before. He did a single interview with the Mysterious Brews podcast, and he says, I already had 4 days off. I'm not going to use my vacation time to go to Long Island. I'm just going to go to Long Island and not tell anybody. So he's not an impromptu, spontaneous person. That's a misreported thing. So when Gary arrived at the airport, he was wearing his Air Force uniform as well as a sweater or jacket, and he was only carrying a lightweight carry-on. As Gary stood waiting at the gate for his row to be called out, a man casually walked up next to him. This did not bother Gary in the slightest, as he assumed the man was also just waiting for his row to be called out as well. Gary described this man quite simply, saying he seemed like just a normal guy. The man was white, and he had neat brown hair and was wearing an overcoat. Pretty much immediately, this man began to strike up a conversation with Gary. Gary said he doesn't quite remember what exactly they talked about, as the small talk was aimless, polite, and quote-unquote normal. As rows began to be called, Gary prepared to get on as soon as he heard his cue. It was at this time that the man pulled out a small notepad and pen from his overcoat pocket. With pen in hand, the man asked Gary what his name was. Gary was a little taken aback and felt like this was a little strange. What's the purpose of the notepad? Is he going to write down my name? What for? I feel like if I was in the airport and I met someone very casually, oh yeah, I'm just getting on the plane, and they were like, what's your name? And like took out a notepad and a pen and was like waiting for me to respond, I'd be like, what the fuck?
I would just be like, I'm not comfortable telling you that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Why are you going to write down my name?
Bye.
So Gary did not answer right away, but then the man began to ask other personal questions. Where are you flying to? How long is your trip going to be? And once again, he asked, what is your name? Gary thought at first that maybe this guy was a salesman. His appearance kind of fit the bill, or maybe the guy was desperate for a friend and was just kind of a weirdo. At this moment, Gary was thankful he was wearing a sweater jacket. He was wearing his uniform, which had a clear display of his name on his chest, but was covered. Gary brushed him off and denied the stranger his personal information, but that's when the strange man told him, don't worry, you won't get in trouble.
Weird.
Yeah. So this did not sit well with Gary at all, so he decided to separate himself from the stranger, and while walking away, the man called out to him, how do you spell your name?
Nanya business.
Nanya business. Business.
Nanya business.
N-U-N-Y-A.
Enya.
So, although the interaction was bizarre, Gary decided to disregard the annoying incident with the stranger and his invasive questions. In the same interview with the Mysterious Brews podcast, Gary even mentions that he was worried that maybe he was military personnel trying to catch him red-handed secretly leaving the state. So he was like, no. Gary's row was called, and as he passed through the gate, he could see that the man was no longer lingering in the crowd. Gary boarded and settled into his seat, and pretty much immediately, a man came and sat in the seat next to him. Cordially, the two of them began a conversation, nothing but airplane small talk.
Which I hate.
Which I hate too. Gary would also describe this man as looking completely normal. He had, quote, blonde hair and wore eyeglasses. Not long after the man sat down next to Gary, another passenger would approach the blonde man and tell him he was in the wrong seat while flashing their ticket. Without speaking to the annoyed passenger, the stranger got up and moved to the seat directly across the aisle from Gary in the middle row. Standing, not sitting, the blonde man continued to carry on his conversation with Gary. He talked over the other passengers on the plane and was acting as if there was no one else around them. So the situation was turning awkward fast. Gary realized that the blonde man seemed fixated on just him. So he decided to just ignore the stranger and remove himself from the conversation. But he was suddenly snapped back into the conversation when the blonde man abruptly asked him, what is your name? Where are you flying to?
Which is weird because he's on a plane.
Yeah.
How are you on the plane but you don't know where the plane's going to?
Yeah. Where are you flying to? Where are you going?
Why
it's
do
like,
you not know where
it's
you're
like,
flying
don't you know? Like, we're going to...
So-and-so, yeah.
Yeah. So, once again, Gary was perturbed, and he thought, why was this guy asking him the same questions as the man from the gate? Gary flat out refused to give him his personal information, but the blonde man became persistent, asking more and more questions. At this point, a stewardess approached the man and asked him for proof of his ticket. What the fuck are you doing here?
Right.
Are you even supposed to be here? Once said ticket was handed over and examined by the stewardess, she directed the blonde man to the back of the plane where he could find his original assigned seat.
So it sounds like he sits next to Gary because he wants to talk to Gary.
Yes.
And then someone's like,
You're in my seat.
So he just moves to the next closest one.
Yes. And is like...
And then they're like, that's still not your seat, brother.
Yeah, talking around people, like, just, yeah. And the stewardess is like, what are you doing? You need to get out of here. Like,
go to your seat,
Go to
bitch.
your seat. So Gary became concerned that there was something fishy going on, and he thought to himself, what if these guys are casing me? What if they are planning on robbing my apartment? Feeling a little paranoid, Gary made a note to contact his landlord and ask for a quick inspection as soon as he landed in Long Island, just to be sure it hadn't been robbed or trashed. Gary landed in Long Island on the night of February 7th. And he would end up making a call to his friend Mike in the evening hours of February 8th, after spending the day with his father. It was during this call that, totally out of the blue, Mike would tell Gary, "Oh, you sound so much better than you did yesterday." All the way up to this point, the conversation they had been having was, quote, pretty normal. Gary says that a lot in his interviews and things that he says. He goes,
pretty normal.
Everything was pretty normal. That's kind of like what the kind of person you get from Gary. Mm-hmm. He's not really interested in talking about this. He's like, yep, it was a pretty normal conversation. He's pretty private. So the conversation they were having was pretty normal, just some simple catching up. But what did Mike mean? Confused, Gary would ask him what he was talking about. And Mike would go on to tell Gary that he had spoken to him the day before after he landed. Mike said that during this supposed call, quote, Gary told him that he had landed at LaGuardia and was going to be in Long Island for a while. Gary, on the phone now, incredibly confused, would tell Mike, no, I didn't call you and I didn't land at LaGuardia. I landed at JFK. JFK.
Holy fuck.
Blowing out the fucking speaker.
I'm just excited.
Oh my God. Mike would assure Gary, just moving past the JFK. The Gary on the phone was like, yeah, I landed in LaGuardia. Gary on the phone now is like, no, that never happened. Why would I land in LaGuardia? I landed at JFK. Mm-hmm. Wrong answer. So Mike would assure Gary that he had spoken to him the day before, but told him that his voice sounded a little different than usual, saying it sounded kind of like you, but wasn't normal.
It wasn't pretty normal?
It wasn't pretty normal.
Oh, no.
And he described the voice as sounding kind of stuffy.
Okay.
During this call, Mike asked Stuffy Gary if he was feeling all right, and Stuffy Gary would tell him, I'm fine, I have a cold, and then abruptly ended the call. So, no more than 15 seconds after Gary and Mike began to talk about the strange phone call from the night before, Gary would hear a cue on the phone line indicating that he had a call waiting. Gary glanced at the caller ID and didn't see any information available. He told Mike he had to end their call to answer the call waiting and said goodbye. When Gary answered the other incoming call, he would hear nothing at first. He greeted the caller once more, and a strange voice would come through the receiver. As soon as he heard the voice, Gary instinctively pressed the record button on his parents' answering machine.
Good instinct.
Yeah.
He's like, something's going on here.
The best instinct.
Weird things have been happening. I'm going to record this because something's fucked up.
I think he literally was looking down at the call waiting and was just like, boop, and just like pressed it.
Right. And when you hear the voice, which we will be obviously playing some audio from the calls, you'll understand why.
Yeah,
why he's like, holy fuck, what the fuck?
We will definitely be playing the calls 100%.
So this call was the first of 4 different calls that Gary would receive over a period of 24 hours at his parents' home in Long Island, New York. The following call would be captured at 10:30 p.m. on February 8th, 1993. The duration of the call is 3 minutes and 46 seconds. Here is the audio of call 1.
I'll tell you who it is.
Hello?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to him?
There's Gary's Sudbrink there.
Yeah, who's this? Steven? Are you playing games with me or what? Huh? Steven, if you're playing games, I'm going to kick your ass.
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
Huh?
You're being impersonated by the other voice.
Yeah, this is you, Steven, you idiot. You're pissing me off, jerk. I'm going to get you on... Let's see what it says. Review. 1 new call out of area. Is Steven out of the area?
Are you going to be back from Texas?
Wait, say that again?
You are being impersonated by the other voice.
Wait, hold on. Is Steven out of the calling area or what?
What do I know?
What do you mean you don't know? He's in Queens. Well, who are you talking to? I don't know who the fuck.
Hello?
Hello?
Is Gary's Sudbrink in there?
Who is this? Sounds like a freaking robot.
Hello?
How long are you going to be back from Texas?
What was that again, sir?
You are being impersonated by the other voice.
Oh, be quiet, Alpha. Sorry, would you see that again? Hello? Being impersonated by what voice?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
Is Gary's Sudbrink in there?
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, what is your question? I'll answer it.
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
How long?
You are being impersonated by the other voice.
Right. When am I coming back? Is that your question? Okay, there was a break. Hold on. You want to know when I'm coming back to Texas? Oh, is that your question?
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
How long am I going to be back from Texas? That question doesn't make any sense.
By the other voice.
Okay. I'll be coming back eventually. I can't tell you when. You should know that question, the answer to the questions, because you seem to know more about me than I do. You know what I'm saying?
Are you an intergalactic person?
Are you a space alien?
Sounds like he hung up.
I can't believe this.
He hung up, Gary.
See if he comes back.
All right, I'll hang up.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. So in that call, you hear 4 different voices.
Yeah.
You hear Gary Sudbrink, the unidentified voice, who we can call UV, Gary's mother, and Gary's father, named Bill Sudbrink. So right out the gate, UV sounds absolutely terrifying, or at least fucking weird.
Yeah.
The speech is slow, low, and repetitive. The voice doesn't respond to questions, interact, or react in any way. They repeat themselves over and over again, uttering the same statements as well as a series of questions. So as for the conversation, Gary mentions his brother Steven multiple times, accusing the voice of being his brother. When Gary checks the caller ID, the device reads 1 new call out of area. So no information. At that time, it's a catch-all ID for an unknown or private number.
Right. Caller ID was pretty new.
Right. So the voice asks, how long are you going to be back from Texas? And this particular question bothers Gary, and he responds telling him that, quote, that question doesn't even make sense. And this may come into play later. And the voice
gets so mad about it.
Well, it's true. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. And the voice says, you're being impersonated by the other voice, multiple times. And this is strange since Mike was just telling Gary that a person had called him, claiming to be Gary.
But just sounded stuffy.
Right. So then, when Gary's mother gets on the line to speak to the voice goes away, stops talking. When Gary comes back on the phone, the unidentified voice speaks again. And then, when asked if they're a space alien or an intergalactic person, quote, the voice ends the call. So after the UV hangs up, Bill hangs up the second landline, and a long dial tone can be heard. At the very last part of the recording, under the dial tone, you can hear Gary exclaim, Jesus Christ, oh my god, man, I'm calling Mike back. So it may seem random that Bill and Gary would ask the voice about being an alien or intergalactic person, but it really isn't. Bill Sudbrink, Gary's father, had witnessed many different UFO phenomena over the years. In fact, Gary and his father had just spent part of the day meeting with a man named Coleman von Kavisky, a well-respected figure in the UFO community. At the time, Coleman von Kavisky was the director of the Intercontinental UFO Research and Analytic Network and was recognized as the unofficial spokesperson for the 1978 United Nations UFO hearings. Bill had made plans to meet with von Kavisky to share some information in regards to some UFO-related incident, and Gary was just along for the ride. Many skeptics like to use this information as a smoking gun to prove that Gary's story is nothing but make-believe, claiming Bill and Gary are hoaxing this entire event by suggesting the narrative they were being contacted by a mysterious space alien. And this simply is not the case. As we get deeper and deeper into these calls, we will begin to see the bigger picture of the entire strange event. No more than 40 minutes later, the second call of the night would come in.
Right. And this call would be captured at 11:10 p.m., same night, February 8th, 1993, and the duration is 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. And here's the audio of that second call.
Yes. Can I answer any questions for you?
Are you back from Texas?
Not back yet, no.
How long are you going to be back from Texas?
Let me answer. First, you tell me, where are you calling from?
This is Gary Sudbrink.
Yeah, why don't you tell me where you're calling from?
Who is this?
What do you mean, who is this? You should know who it is. It's me, Gary. Wait, let me ask you this question. Where are you calling from? Okay, I'll be back. Excuse me? I can't hear too well. Yeah, it is a full moon out. That's true. Could you identify yourself? Identify yourself. Why are you calling me? Excuse me? I cannot hear too well.
Get on the other phone, it's better.
Hold on, let me switch phones. Okay. Okay, hold on. Now, who are you?
Keep an eye in the sky, he said.
Keep an eye in the sky?
Yeah.
Ask him, can I talk to him? I had a sighting.
Okay, hold on. Say that. Repeat that again. Please repeat. Okay.
Near Orion. Holy mackerel. Tonight or guess on when?
The full moon.
They told
Double from here.
Repeat.
Tell them I like to talk to them.
Okay, repeat last word. I'm hearing static.
Tell them I like to talk to them.
He hung up.
He hung up?
Hello?
So weird, right? The second call shared many characteristics of the first call. Both were around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. The voice in both calls is slow and repetitive, and they do not respond to questions or any other interactions. UV would come in with all the same kind of questions, but worded a little differently. And UV would ask, "Are you back from Texas?" instead of the prior, as well as, "Is this Gary Sudbrink?" instead of requesting if Gary was there. And a new set of words would come through on this call too. UV would say, "Keep an eye on the skies. Near Orion, the full moon."
Keep an eye on the skies. I love when Gary's like, he said keep an eye on the skies. And the dad's like, keep an eye on the skies? Holy mackerel.
Holy mackerel. I know. I love Bill.
Tell him I
Sudbrink.
need to talk to him.
I already had a UFO sighting already, right? So, and actually, exactly what Gary says, he's like, yeah, there is a full moon out. Because if you look at the lunar calendar, it shows that on February 6th, 1993, that was a full moon, making the 8th only 2 days of waning, still giving the moon a full appearance in the sky. And Gary spends a lot of time of this call speaking to his father, Bill Sudbrink, and he's pretty distracted.
Right.
I don't think it helps that he couldn't hear very well, and also that the voice is way fucked up and distorted.
Yeah, and it seems a lot quieter. At least in this recording,
it sounds a lot quieter.
The caller's a lot quieter.
Yeah. And he says he can't hear anything. And UV slowly relays into the receiver, keep an eye on the skies near Orion, the full moon. And because Gary couldn't hear UV and he was also talking to Bill, he misses the weirdest statement of all. UV says, show double of you. Again, once Bill Sudbrink wants to get on the call with UV, asking Gary over and over again, tell him I'd like to talk to him. UV promptly ends the call. But only a few minutes later, the phone would ring again and the third call would come through.
So the third call was captured at 11:18 p.m. on February 8th, 1993. The duration of this one is 3 minutes, 33 seconds. So here's the audio for the third call that night.
Okay. Yeah, it's taking time for him to talk. Who is this? Stephen, this is not funny,
Brian, it's not Steven.
What do you mean, Brian?
I mean, Gary.
How do I know it's not Stephen?
It's not Steven. Hello? I had a UFO experience in West Virginia, which you probably know. And I know that you're into an intergalactic person. Can you speak a little louder? Sir? Can you speak a little louder? Louder?
Let me speak to him, Dad. I guess, I don't know what...
All right, I'll hang up so you can talk to me. He wants to talk to you.
Okay. Hello, can I help you?
Hello.
Yes. Yes, that's me. Yes, could you please identify yourself? Identify.
Oh, you're back from Texas.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm in Texas right now. Oh, he asked me a question. No, I'm in New York right now. You know that. Why are you asking me such a question? Yes. Stephen, if this is you, I swear to God, I'm going to be pissed. Huh? I'm trying to listen to him. Excuse me? Okay. Eventually I'll be back from Texas. Could you speak more? Please speak more. I guess it's not Stephen. I believe it because I'm getting static.
People will not raise 3 times.
Let me go on this phone because I can never hear on this phone. Hold on. Okay. Okay, please speak. Hello?
Keep an eye on the sky.
Okay. Should I go out right now?
Right.
Right now?
The full moon.
Okay, see, I'm not sure where Orion is now, but we'll go outside.
Show double from you.
It would show double from me. Repeat that again?
When the call begins, you can hear Gary say it's taking time for him to talk, but UV is speaking quietly underneath. Bill Sudbrink would also accidentally call Gary Brian, which is Gary's other brother, and it's kind of funny because he gets offended.
Really offended. What do you mean, Brian?
Oh, sorry. I mean Gary. Again, when Bill is present on the line or speaks to UV, there is little to no interaction. Bill Sudbrink on the second landline begins to tell UV about his personal UFO experience. And the voice is either not speaking or is continuing to speak so quietly they can't be heard. Once Bill drops the second landline phone, the voice comes through very loud and clear again, repeating the same questions from previous calls. As for the quality of the call, there's way more static present in this call, but it's clearer than call number 2. Once Gary switches to the other phone, UV repeats the exact same script from the second call, but much louder. UV would warn Gary again, keep an eye on the skies, near Orion, the full moon. The voice very slowly and clearly says again, show double of you. Gary hears it this time, and as soon as Gary repeats to UV, It will show double of me. The voice promptly ends the call. Too shocked to speak, Gary hangs up the receiver. Is it possible that UV decided to call back to repeat the same message because Gary couldn't hear them in the second call? The second call is garbled and quiet and really difficult to make out. There's static interference as well as the distracting chatting with Bill on the side. This message from UV was obviously very important for them to relay, and it would tie into another bizarre incident surrounding Gary and his family.
Yeah. I think that that's very possible because the second call is so fucked up and it's literally the exact same, except it's a little bit more to the point. Bill is talking. He doesn't, is this Gary Sudbrink? Are you back in Texas? No. Well, this is my message for you. And that's pretty much all he says.
Yeah.
Or
he's just trying to get a hold of Gary.
Yeah.
If you enjoy our content, please rate, review, and consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/radiograve. You can also support us with a one-time donation by visiting buymeacoffee.com/radiograve. Your patronage and support helps us continue to create content for you. You can stay up to date with us by following our Instagram account, Radio Grave Podcast. Thank you for listening. So, the year before, in 1992, Stephen Sudbrink, who has been mentioned, like, Stephen, I swear to God, I'm gonna fucking kill you if this is you. So Stephen is Gary's older brother, and in 92, he would be driving to a wedding in Long Island when he experienced an odd encounter. While driving down the highway, a car would suddenly pull up in the lane next to Stephen's and match his speed, so it's pacing him. The vehicle was not driving erratically, but the driver seemed to be acting strangely. Once Stephen got a better look at the driver, he was totally surprised to see the person driving next to him was his brother Gary. Gary began to make goofy, bizarre faces, holding Stephen's attention. This encounter would only last for a few moments, and eventually Stephen would watch in awe as Gary, supposedly, accelerated and just drove away. When Stephen confronted Gary, the conversation got stranger. Gary was visiting family in Long Island at the time of this incident, but had been at home with his parents for the entire day. Gary had flown to Long Island from Texas and didn't have access to a vehicle. The vehicle Stephen said Gary was driving was the exact make and model of Gary's car that he had back in San Antonio sitting in his driveway. Between the impersonator from Mike's phone call and the doppelganger sighting by Stephen no more than a year before adds a deeper meaning to the voice's warnings. You're being impersonated by the other voice. Show double of you. The fourth and final call wouldn't come in until the next evening, the day after the initial 3 calls.
And you will hear there is an additional voice recorded on this call, and it's actually Gary's uncle named Tom Sudbrink, Bill's brother. This call would be captured at 10:21 p.m. on February 9th, 1993, and the duration is 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Here is the audio for the fourth and final call.
Yes, this is me. Can I speak to you? Can I ask why you're... Yes, can I ask why you're calling? Can I please ask... Yes, this is. Yes, that is me. Say that again?
This planet.
Leave?
We come
I'm staying right here.
to be within this planet.
Is this a joke or what? I have to think about that. I'd like to see you.
To many to be contact as the same with you.
Hey, let me tell you something. I've been listening to you, and I've had contacts with you.
Government interference? You have? Please explain what type of interference. Okay.
Visitations to be disrupted by them. Appears. Sun will rise from dark side of world. No.
The sun will rise from the dark side of the moon.
Okay, what branch of the government? What should I do?
Beware. Government interference. Visitations to be disrupted by them.
Okay. Is that good for me or bad? They hung up.
That one's kind of crazy because
It's my favorite one.
it's my favorite one. It's out of control. So UV asks, is this Gary Sudbrink? In every variety of ways they had uttered before, verifying over and over who they were speaking to. And Gary asks again, where are you calling from? Why are you calling? UV follows up with the strangest message so far, as well as another warning. He says, or they say, we come to be within this planet, to visit the many, to be contacted as the same with you. Gary kind of misunderstands UV and he hears, leave this planet. And he responds defensively, I'm staying right here.
I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
You won't even say who you are. Don't tell me what
I'm
to
staying
do.
right here. And Tom Sudbrink interjects, Tom, his uncle, interjects on the second landline, but without hesitation, UV continues with their warning. Beware government interference. Visitations to be disrupted by them. Gary, confused, asks what kind of interference. Towards the end, UV gets a little bit garbled, and with Tom Sudbrink talking over UV at one point, there is some audio that is missed and unrecoverable. But at 2 minutes, 25 seconds, it is believed that UV says, it is not as appears. The sun will rise on the dark side of the moon. The world will know, show double of you. UV ends the call after Gary asks what branch of the government he should be worried about. And keep in mind, Gary is a U.S. Air Force captain himself. He asks, what should I do? Is that good for me or bad? But then the receiver click is heard. Gary, sounding totally defeated, says they hung up. Tom Sudbrink tells UV, I've been listening to you. I've had contacts with you. This statement is strange in itself, but actually makes quite a bit of sense, because Tom Sudbrink, like his brother, was also a longtime believer in UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena, after having experienced many years of personal sightings as well. Gary, according to a few of our sources, hadn't witnessed any UFO or extraterrestrial phenomena. However, Gary would admit that he had experienced a handful of strange incidents, as well as some paranoia that had developed over time. He doesn't necessarily say, this is aliens or this is UFOs. He just says, I've had some weird things happen to me.
Right. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would jump to, this is aliens, when something strange happens to him.
His uncle and his dad do, but
For different reasons, I'm sure.
yeah.
Gary would allude in an interview with the Mysterious Brews podcast that while he was stationed in San Antonio, he became very paranoid and concerned about his safety in his own home. He was afraid that someone could break into his apartment in the middle of the night while he was asleep and attack him. Because he didn't have any sort of security system set in place, Gary would get creative. Gary stated that he would take a baking sheet and place it on the floor under the knob of his bedroom door. He would then stack a tower of coins on top of the knob, ensuring if anyone were to turn the handle, the coins would fall onto the baking sheet. The racket of the coins would alert him of an intruder trying to enter his room. This paranoia can be seen after Gary was accosted by the strange men at the airport, thinking they were going to rob him. As mentioned before, Gary was concerned the men were casing him because they were asking him questions and watching him. He's quoted saying, "It wasn't like there was anything to take, but I called and asked my landlord to check it out."
The coins thing is so weird.
Why?
Because, first of all, the idea in itself, he's really, really concerned about an intruder.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thinks like of this kind of really out there idea of stacking a tower of coins on his doorknob. So if his doorknob turns, the coins will fall onto the baking sheet and wake him up. I just feel like that's a level of paranoia that is kind of unmatched to just regular anxiety. I feel like that's a little bit excessive. I feel like people who have common anxiety, depression, don't do things like that. I think it's a little advanced paranoia.
It's advanced paranoia, but it's not something that I wouldn't do, to be honest.
But that's you, for sure.
Yeah, true.
But
if the point that you're making is that that's something that a person with pretty severe paranoia and anxiety would do, then yeah.
I think it's more so that Gary Sudbrink never flat out says that he's just not the kind of person who has said that he was suffering from this sort of paranoia. He was just like, yeah, I was just really concerned and I did this thing. And people are like, interesting.
Well, he's a military man and he's very straightforward. And I don't think that, I mean, while his family is like obviously open to like UFOs and stuff.
Yeah.
Talking about mental illness or mental problems might not be something that's something that he wants to talk about.
I think, yeah.
He's just like, oh yeah, I was just paranoid, so I put some coins on my thing.
Right. I think coming from Gary, it's just like, it's more bizarre that it's coming from him. Not so much that he's a normal person and it's bizarre, but it's more so like it's Gary who's like having those thoughts. I don't know. I just think that it's a level of paranoia that doesn't seem to fit in with someone who is as average. It's a little advanced to
Quote,
me.
pretty normal.
Yeah, as Gary is.
Pretty normal. Pretty normal. Well, in that same interview, Gary would also recount an experience he had in his apartment right before he had left to visit Long Island. On a totally pretty normal day, Gary would suddenly hear the chopping sound of a helicopter. The chopping of the wings would begin to grow unbearably loud. It caused Gary to approach his sliding glass door to see what in the world was going on. In the dirt field right outside of his apartment complex's gates was a helicopter floating 20 feet off the ground. Gary said he could not understand what he was seeing. Wanting to get a better look, Gary ran to fetch his glasses, but by the time he returned to the door, the helicopter was gone. The sight was so undeniably weird he didn't know what to think. He thought, why was there a helicopter hovering around in a civilian neighborhood? Gary went outside to take a look around when he noticed one of his neighbors was in their driveway. He immediately thought about confronting his neighbor, wanting to say, "Did you see that?" But Gary suddenly stopped himself. He could see his neighbor was nonchalantly washing their car, almost like they didn't even see or hear the ear-splittingly loud helicopter that was just on the other side of the fence. Gary immediately rationalized in his mind, that was so ridiculous, of course they saw it, how could they have not? Gary turned around, walked back to his apartment, and filed the experience into the back of his mind. He knew what he saw, but he didn't understand what he saw. To make this event weirder, Gary was not the only person to have a bizarre helicopter sighting. Gary's father and younger brother Brian would have a similar encounter near their home in Long Island, a sighting that defies the laws of physics. Gary briefly recounted the story in the same interview. He tells that his father and brother were spending time together when they began to hear the chopping sound of a helicopter. The chopping got increasingly louder and eventually was unbearable. It was clear to them that there was a helicopter outside that was too close for comfort. When the pair headed outside of the house to investigate, they discovered a peculiar sight. A helicopter was hovering about 30 feet off the ground, but was completely turned on its side, motionless with the rotor blades spinning. Helicopters can fly sideways, up and down, even upside down, but while hovering, the abilities are limited. Helicopters are able to spin around while in a stationary hover, but the ability to be tilted 90 degrees on its side is impossible. While Gary's helicopter sighting is odd because of the location and the lack of acknowledgement from his neighbor, Bill and Brian's helicopter sighting is odd because what the helicopter was doing was simply impossible. These coincidences go to show that Gary's calls weren't random, but continue to be part of a bigger picture. A picture that will keep growing as we dig deeper.
Big true. The helicopter thing seems so fucking weird. Because I've never even seen a helicopter up close, except for like one time when I was in Montana. And they're so loud and they're so powerful.
Yeah.
Just to be in a civilian neighborhood, like helicopters don't do that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be just
landing,
hovering
in like a field next to an apartment complex. That's like not what they do.
No.
And he's just like, whoa, like he knows that. He's an Air Force captain. He knows that that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation is so weird that he's just like, he just decides, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not even going to say anything to my neighbor about it because it was so weird. But Bill and Brian, like the whole thing with the helicopter being not hovering like this, but on its side.
Makes no sense.
It's not possible. And just hovering. It's not like it was like, whoom, like flying by.
Mm-hmm.
It was just in one place.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk that much about it. He doesn't say like, oh, and then it floated away or then it, disappeared.
He's just like, oh, they saw this.
They saw this thing.
That's it. Yeah.
Because that's the kind of person he is. He's not really that interested in delving and kind of speculating. He's just like, I don't know. That's just what they saw.
Right.
He's really not a sensationalizer. He's not fluffing it up.
The incidents with the helicopters weren't the only incidents that the Sudbrink family had experienced. There were some other things that happened with Bill and Tom.
Right. Because they say even on the phone to UV that we've had our own UFO experiences. Let me talk to them. Are you an intergalactic person? And at the time that Gary's mystery calls had occurred, both brothers, Tom and Bill Sudbrink, were part of the nonprofit, well-organized Long Island UFO Network, or LIUFON. And they'd been a part of LIUFON for years.
Is LIUFON what eventually ended up being MUFON?
MUFON is...
Or is that separate?
MUFON is Mutual UFO...
Got it.
Network. MUFON is like the big.
Yeah. So LIUFON is like a sub.
It's specifically
It's a
Long
localized.
Island.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On May 28th, 1989, the Sudbrink brothers decided to drive down in two separate vehicles to the Green Bank Telescope Observatory in West Virginia. The purpose of this trip was to investigate a radio tower that had mysteriously collapsed 6 months prior. The hulking 300-foot telescope seemed to inexplicably collapse on itself.
Very normal.
Yeah. This prompted many to believe the incident had been paranormal, blaming hostile aliens for destroying the structure.
Also normal.
Yeah. So documentation is spotty at best, but there were some reports of UFO activity right before the tower had fallen. But it was years later determined that a cable failure due to rust and corrosion led to the collapse. But
no.
That's a cover-up.
It's a cover-up. Aliens.
And also, just a side note, amazingly, in the last 20 years, the rebuilt Green Bank telescope has made some amazing discoveries. One discovery was a coil-shaped magnetic field in the Orion molecular cloud in 2006. Orion, what a weird coincidence. And the telescope was actually used later on in the Breakthrough Listen project. This project's main focus was, and still is, aimed at finding evidence of civilizations beyond Earth.
We got him.
In 2017, the telescope would be used to scan Oumuamua, an interstellar object detected passing through our solar system, for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. So the Green Bank telescope is like very at the center of a UFO phenomena as well.
Right.
Not just with the collapse that people thought was caused by UFOs, but then later on was detecting all kinds of stuff and was used for that purpose, which is really, really cool, actually. And if any of you are interested, we might even do like a mini morp on it. Oumuamua is we still don't understand what it was. So
Never heard of it.
oh, it's so cool. Maybe we will. I'm kind of alien overloaded, but maybe we will. So back to Bill and Tom. It's unclear if the pair were able to document any sort of evidence of a hostile attack, but eventually they finished their investigation and embarked on their long drive back to Long Island in their respective vehicles. Coincidentally, as they followed each other north, Bill Sudbrink would suddenly find himself having a UFO encounter.
Good timing.
Right? Flying about 30 to 40 yards from his vehicle, the UFO began to appear and disappear intermittently and spontaneously.
So it's like flashing in and out, basically. Okay.
Bill described the shape of the craft as the classic sun hat with a black band across the bottom of the dome. But back in the 80s and 90s, people called it a sombrero. Woof.
So it's like the classic, like when you see a cartoon UFO.
Yes.
Okay.
Like super classic. Bill pulled off onto the side of the road, retrieved his video camera, and recorded the unidentified craft for nearly 4 seconds before it quickly vanished, not to be seen again. This footage would later be submitted to the Mutual UFO Network, also known as MUFON.
Boo, 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 boo.
MUFON. MUFON's the daddy.
MUFON is Father UFO
Yes.
researchers.
Yes, they're the daddy.
I have a MUFON magnet on my fridge.
Yeah. I submitted my UFO encounter to MUFON.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. Anyway, Mutual UFO Network, also known as MUFON, along with Bill's testimony of the incident. An optical physicist and scientific investigator with MUFON named Dr. Bruce Maccabee would go on to be assigned to analyze the footage of the craft to determine the film's validity. In the May 1990 issue of MUFON, the UFO Journals, Dr. Maccabee published an investigative research article of his analysis and professional opinion regarding Bill Sudbrink's UFO tape. After thorough review, Dr. Maccabee determined that he could not, quote, definitively prove or disprove the validity of the craft. This was due to the low resolution and the indiscernible size and shape of the craft. He could not tell if the footage was genuine or featured an artifact, end quote. So some people consider Bill's inconclusive evidence as proof that the Sudbrinks have a pattern of attempting to hoax or fake UFO phenomena, but it actually proves the exact opposite. And it's important to be clear about what MUFON's prerogative really is. MUFON primarily focuses on collecting data, conducting research, and investigating phenomenal events and encounters, and then publish their findings to be read by skeptics and UFO enthusiasts alike. Against common belief, MUFON is quick to investigate and analyze all submissions of audio, visual, and physical evidence. MUFON finds it necessary to weed out fakes and hoaxes as much as possible as to uphold their honest belief in spreading the truth about the UFO phenomena and not indulge in science fiction. It is very unlikely that Bill and Tom Sudbrink would risk their reputation as well as their status in LIUFON by faking UFO footage and then submitting it to MUFON to be analyzed. It's just, if they did that, they would know. Like, it's obvious. Like, if they sent in a fake, MUFON would say this is fake.
Right.
Bill and Tom were dedicated to the research and investigation of unexplained phenomena, and in the opinion of myself and many others, it is believed the duo did not fake the footage captured in West Virginia.
Have you seen this footage?
I have not, but I can't imagine, like I said, why they would fake it.
Well, yeah, I was asking if you'd seen it.
I don't think that it's very easily available.
Probably not. It's probably just I think the one copy.
Probably maybe. With Gary. Gary probably has it. So, 2 years after the Sudbrink brothers' investigation in West Virginia, an unexplained and phenomenal event would occur in New York City. In November of 1992, hundreds of people would witness and experience the aftermath of the South Haven Park UFO crash. And you can bet your bottom dollar that Bill and Tom Sudbrink were there to dive headfirst into the investigation conducted by LIUFON.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Fucking hell yeah.
UFO brothers. Ow.
And honestly, like...
Do we not want to acknowledge my pain?
Ow. Sorry.
It's okay.
And honestly, these coincidences of all of these sightings, all of these recordings, everything that is going on with the Sudbrinks, it's not random. They continue to be part of a bigger picture. And that is a picture that will keep growing as we dig deeper. And next week, we're going to get way deeper.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Because I don't really know anything past this. To be honest, I don't know much past the calls. My head's spinning.
It's going to keep spinning because this shit, it's so multifaceted. There's so much stuff. You're going to love it.
Excited.
And you're going to love it too as a listener. I really, really think so. If you love UFOs, if you love this kind of stuff, your head is going to spin. There was so much stuff that I had no idea about when it came to the South Haven Park UFO crash, when it came to Gary Sudbrink and the Sudbrink family, everything.
Your head is going to become a UFO.
Your head is going to float off your body.
Woo! It's going to spin so hard it pops off and goes into the sky.
And Bill Sudbrink's going to record
He's
it.
going to videotape it.
And
Be like, MUFON, what is this?
He's going to send it into MUFON. But yeah.
They go, that's a radio grave listener's head. We see them all the time.
We see them all the time. Perf. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Again, you keep coming back. You're just a glutton for punishment. I don't know what your problem is.
You sicken me.
You sick. You're just sick in the head.
You're sick.
Well, we'll see you next week for part 2 of I almost said Bill Sudbrink.
I mean, he's trying to be the main character.
Yeah, you know what? Next week we'll see you. We'll catch you for the Bill Sudbrink, the Tom and Bill Sudbrink.
Tom and Bill Sudbrink's, Bill and Tom's extraterrestrial adventure.
Exactly. Can't wait. So stoked.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, goodbye.
At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety. Continue to carry out the following instructions.
Radio Grave is hosted by Amber Byland and Dominique Makasuya. Music courtesy of AOA Music, Carl Casey at White Bat Audio, and intro music by Simon Bickbyler. Audio mixing and editing by Amber Byland. Logo and cover art by Dominique Makasuya. All other media and sound clips used are protected under fair use and are for the purpose of criticism, commentary, news reporting, education, and research. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.